Welcome to the Wednesday Sangha call, UK. So it's August the 23rd, and just hanging out here with Pietro there. So we're kind of filling in. Scott's in Thailand right now, so the time zones are a little bit different. So I have a sutta lined up for us today, an analysis of the path. So this is from Samyutta Nikaya 45.8, and this is the Nisero translation. I have heard that at one time the Blessed One was staying in Savatthi at Jeta's Grove, Anathana Pindika's monastery. There he addressed the monks, saying, "Monks." "Yes, Lord," the monks responded to him. The Blessed One said, "I will teach and analyze for you the Noble Eightfold Path. Listen, pay close attention as I speak." "As you say, Lord," the monks responded to him. The Blessed One said, "Now what, monks, is the Noble Eightfold Path? Right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration." And so with this one too, I'm just kind of throwing in here again, this is like one, translation of like the Noble Eightfold Path. So the way we might refer to things here might be a little bit different from, time to time. And that's kind of a good thing to kind of recognize when it comes to the translations and have different sort of inputs. For example, we got right concentration here. So that's like samadhi, or sometimes we'll use right unification of mind there as well. And another interesting one here is the right resolve, which is actually a lot of the time translated as right intention and right thought and right attitude. We like to use, I think here Dhammarato uses that one quite often. So just a little bit in there, but I'm going to continue here, and we start off with right view. And what, monks, is right view? Knowledge with regard to stress, knowledge with regard with regard to the origination of stress, knowledge with regard to the stopping of stress, knowledge with regard to the way of the practice leading to the stopping of stress. This, monks, is called right view. So it's interesting here because talking about right view or the right viewing, here it's kind of talking about it in reference to the Four Noble Truths. And it's talking again, which is interesting because the Four Noble Truths we can kind of bring down to that smaller thing of dukkha, dukkha, nirodha. That is sort of the main thing, and the really helpful guiding compass. One looking at these teachings is to come back to dukkha, so dissatisfaction, stress, sometimes translated as suffering, but here it's translated as stress, and the end of it. And that's broken up here in the Four Noble Truths. So that's right view. And then we're going to continue on to right resolve, or right intention or attitude. And what is right resolve? Being resolved on renunciation, on freedom from ill will, on harmlessness. This is called right resolve. So those kind of three items also come up quite frequently when we're talking about that right intention: the renunciation, the freedom from ill will, and harmlessness or non-cruelty. And again, this is sort of the attitude that comes about. We, have the renunciation because we don't need anything. We're happy campers. And also the freedom from ill will. Again, that's the aversion, the pushing away from what is. It's hard to be satisfied when we are adverse to, what's going on and have ill will towards it. And then that also, leads to the harmlessness. And that harmlessness is an interesting one too, because that can kind of go, the positive side of that is the loving kindness, but it's sort of interesting to look at that and in the sort of negative aspect of doing no harm, harmlessness. All right, I'm going to continue down to the next line here. And what is right speech? Abstaining from lying, abstaining from divisive speech, abstaining from abusive speech, abstaining from idle chatter. This, monks, is called right speech. So it's kind of giving an outline and for what right speech is in practice. And abstaining from lying, that's helpful, in this practice, telling the truth. Divisive speech. So again, kind of going in there and just stirring stuff up, it's sort of helpful to kind of have speech that brings things together, brings things to harmony. And then also abusive speech and abstaining from the idle chatter. And I think one of the things that's really helpful with right speech too is also understanding like right place and right time. That's something that's also quite helpful. So we're going to move down here. And what, monks, is right action? Abstaining from taking life, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from unchastity. This, monks, is called right action. So again, this might be a little bit more in the monastic sort of side of things as well when we're getting to the whole unchastity thing. But again, it's kind of talking about abstaining from taking life, from stealing. These things are going to, lead to trouble for, others, and it's also going to lead to trouble for yourself. And so the whole core point of the practice is to, step out of dukkha. It's going to cause a lot of problems, if you're going around stealing a bunch of stuff or, it's a lot of dukkha there. So I'm going to move down to right livelihood. And what, monks, is right livelihood? There is a case where a disciple of the noble ones, having abandoned dishonest livelihood, keeps his life going with right livelihood. This, monks, is called right livelihood. All right. And I'm going to go down just kind of to directly, I think, reading these, but we're going to move down to right effort. And there's a little bit more on right effort here. And what, monks, is right effort? Here's the first one. There is a case where a monk generates desire, endeavors, activates persistence, upholds and exerts his intent for the sake of non-arising of evil, unskillful qualities that have not yet arisen. So this is actually before the unskillful qualities have arisen, to actually put in the effort to, prevent them from arising. So this is actually kind of putting in the practice. Here's the second one. He generates desires, endeavors, activates persistence, upholds and exerts his intent for the sake of the abandonment of evil, unskillful qualities that have arisen. So it's interesting too, going into this one, this is really like the application, and like when we sort of see the hindrance, and we put in like, say something like, aha, I see you, Mara. Right? And we kind of have that sort of gladdening up, and we learn to, spot these things and carry through with them in a way which is skillful, where we're changing them from the unwholesome to the wholesome. So now I'm going to move on to the third. He generates desire, endeavors, activates persistence, upholds and exerts his intent for the sake of the arising of skillful qualities that have not yet arisen. So this is like also application there. So the skillful qualities, whether they be, actual like the thoughts, the speech, what have you, they haven't arisen, but this is the actual application of the mind. This is actually generating, wholesome, thoughts. And then we have the fourth. He generates desire, endeavors, activates persistence, upholds and exerts his intent for the maintenance of non-confusion, increases plenitude, development, accumulation, skillful qualities that have arisen. This, monk, is called right effort. So I believe this is the continued development of the skills as well. So there is talking about right effort there. What I think is interesting here, it is actually when it's talking about right effort, it's still actually talking, it brings up desire, and it's like, okay, there's kind of a skillful, desire here that can be kind of, um, applied, which I think is helpful, because sometimes we get into the idea with this sort of thing. It's all about, getting rid of desire and all that stuff. Well, it depends on the kind of desire. Like even when I was reading, the ABCs of Buddhism, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa talks about, kind of wisdom at the point of contact, and how, unwise feeling goes into unwise, desire, which goes into craving, or sorry, goes into like the actual attachment, right, to things. But the wise desire, which is skillful, like if you have that wisdom at the point of contact, where you go from that feeling to, um, you can go into like a sort of wise desire, and that would be that with the right effort, the actual changing there. So there can be a little bit of a direction here, I think, with the mind that can be kind of helpful. And then once, the mind is kind of in that state, not much effort needs to be, put in. We can relax and we can just chill. I mean, really, the right effort is the light effort. It's the effort to just chillax. So I can continue as well down to right mindfulness. We just got a little bit more on this particular sutta. But if you wanted to chime in or say anything, Petra.
Oh well, no. Let's see. Let's see the next one. I'm curious
Oh,
to this.
okay. Yeah. So this is actually going to talk about sati, or mindfulness. Here in this translation, it's mindfulness. We talk about it as kind of like a wakeful sort of remembrance, wakey wakey. But here we go. And what monks is right mindfulness? There is a case where a monk remains focused on the body in of itself, ardent, aware, and mindful, putting away greed and distress in reference to the world. 2. He remains focused on feelings in and of themselves, ardent, aware, and mindful, putting away greed and distress in reference to the world. 3. He remains focused on mind in and of itself, ardent, aware, and mindful, putting away greed and distress in reference to the world. 4. He remains focused on mental qualities in of themselves, ardent, aware, and mindful, putting away greed and distress in reference to the world. This, monks, is called right mindfulness. What's interesting here too is that goes into the 4 foundations, or references of mindfulness right there. So the satipatthana is being talked about there in terms of mindfulness. And I think that's a very helpful, um, reference for like what sati is, and kind of what, if you're kind of going to the 4 foundations and what we're kind of paying attention to here, like that is quite a helpful direction.
Cool.
Cool.
Very cool.
So I can continue down to the last one if you like, in this particular sutta, or if you want to add anything from personal experience, or
Let's do the last one. Let's see.
okay. So yeah, so this is going to be on right samadhi, unification of mind, or here concentration. And what, monks, is right concentration? There is a case where a monk, quiet, withdrawn from sensuality, withdrawn from unskillful mental qualities, enters and remains in the first jhana, rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal, accompanied by directed thought and evaluation. So that's the first. Second, with the stilling of directed thought and evaluation, he enters and remains in the second jhana, rapture and pleasure born from concentration, unification of awareness, free from directed thought and evaluation, internal assurance. Third, with the fading of rapture, he remains equanimous, mindful and alert, with senses of pleasure and body. He enters and remains in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare equanimous and mindful, he has a pleasant abiding. 4. With the abandonment of pleasure and pain, with the earlier disappearance of the elation and distress, he enters and remains in the fourth jhana, purity of equanimity and mindfulness, neither pleasure nor pain. This, monks, is called right concentration. That is what the Blessed One said. Gratitude, or gratified, the monks delighted at his words. So that's the sutta right there. I just thought it would be a kind of a concise one, kind of just going over the Noble Eightfold Path. But that last bit talking about samadhi goes actually right into the jhanas, those sort of wholesome states of mind. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's
You mentioned, first jhana, I mentioned that it's like one of the focal points, especially here in this Sangha, that we always come back to the importance of the first jhana, and that it is basically what is needed to practice first jhana and to stay in the first jhana, because it means if one is progressing towards the first jhana, or it is in the first jhana, it means that it is following the Eightfold Noble Method, and so he is applying the method, and because it cannot be other way. If some point is missing, for example, especially at the level of thoughts, if we are entertaining an unwholesome state of mind, we cannot be progressing or abiding for jhana. The same way, so action follows. So it's the same thing. Also, if we are stuck in a certain opinion about the world, we are stuck in a certain fixed view, we cannot progress or abide towards in the first jhana. So our progressing towards or abiding in the first jhana is the proof that we are practicing, and we're practicing correctly. In my experience, I mean, like I never honestly I connect some states of pleasantness to the first jhana, but I never had the occasion to say to myself, okay, this is first jhana, and delight myself with the thought. Because I personally like find it's useful to me to really to keep the mind not reactive, and calm, nurturing thoughts, so that I feel gladdened, and just tranquilizing myself almost all the time, actually. There are days when one can be pretty reactive or feels pretty exposed to circumstances, and so like it's a good way for me to practice to relying on my skills to tranquilize myself with positive thoughts, and put in there some minutes of formal practice, but also in the next time, like nurturing, and and just say keep calm, it's okay, it's wonderful. Enjoy.
Just coming. It's
It's
nice,
fine.
to come back to that, and to come back to this satisfaction and ease, which is much more in a way like reliable, because it's not reliant so much on like specific stimuli, which is sort of that thing as we kind of go about in the world, and stuff is just kind of like coming and going. So as we continue to cultivate and develop this skill, of the right, unification of mind, where we can kind of have these enter into like these wholesome states. And what's really helpful with like the first jhana, as we kind of talk about it here, and why we kind of emphasize that as working it in as sort of the base camp, is that one can like live their life from this place, which is interesting. Like here, when it talks about right concentration, and immediately kind of goes into the jhana, because really if the mind is quite unified, the factors are going to come together. If one is practicing sati, if they're waking up consistently, if they're taking that look, if they are making the discernment, okay, this is dukkha, this is not dukkha, they're dropping the dukkha when it arises. Okay, we can drop that, we can let go of that, we see that it is unhelpful. They're putting in the right effort. As we continue to put in the right effort, our attitude then changes. So this kind of going up, how it's set up in the Great 40, which is a great reference in terms of a sutta. And how like the path is actually laid out and directly applied like nobly. And so, yeah, once one thought after another is just wholesome. And here it talks about, those kind of qualities of the first jhana. And one of them is, how does it put it here? It's by directed thought and evaluation. Okay, so there still is that discernment going on, there still is the wholesome thought. So we kind of put it the applied and sustained wholesome thought, like that's sort of it. And that's working in with actually putting in the right effort. It talks about the application of it to one wholesome thought after another. Like that's sort of the main thing here. And if we're kind of working with that and putting in one wholesome thought after another, our attitude is going to change, right? And so like the one thing too that's interesting, I think, as well, is it's not just changing again. A thought kind of comes, and might think, oh well, I thought a wholesome thought, but things aren't really like changing. It's the persistence, and it's to keep coming back to it again and again, so that the actual mind state changes as well. It's like the underlying thing beyond the thought. This is sort of working in with the feelings as well, but this all works in with like the foundations of mindfulness, right? So when we're kind of coming back, it's like, okay, I read a sutta before about, I'm trying to remember which ones, but it's called A Bunch of the Wholesome. And it actually talks about like kind of what is wholesome and what is not wholesome a bit. And one of the reference it gives for what is downright wholesome is these four foundations of mindfulness, to come back to, okay, the body. I mean, that's what we're doing with anapanasati. We're coming back to the breath as an anchor. That's training that sati, where we just keep coming back, again and again, because then we wake up, we remember to take a look at what's going on within, the mind. Like with the body, we're waking up and being like, okay, this is what's going on here now with the mind. And then we can actually make that change. We can start to break apart the stories and the narratives that we tell ourselves. And then we can just drop it and come back to just being like, wait, we can feel good right now. And then we actually start to like feel good. Like this is something that is kind of interesting, in direct experiences. You're like, wow, you actually do start to like feel good, and you can actually talk yourself into feeling good to the point where you don't even have to do much talking anymore. And this is where it can kind of drop away and just be like, wait, don't need to don't need to think anything. That's like sort of it's funny when the mind kind of comes to stilling, that's sort of the one I'll just be like, okay, you know what, I don't need to think anything, and then just play with the gaps and just let them subside. And then you kind of get into the higher jhanas, if you will. But the main thing is to not be attached to those higher jhanas. It's to come back to be satisfied, with like the first jhana. Because if you go into those higher jhanas for a bit and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, this is so wonderful, I want that, and you have an idea of it, you're not in there, you're not. And if there's craving and distress, you're not really in any kind of a wholesome state of mind. So it's being able to be like, hey, wait a minute, no, we can drop that. We can enjoy the process. We can enjoy cultivating these skills and coming back again and again. So I went on a little bit of a thing there, but yeah, if there's anything you'd like to add, Paicha. Also, thank you for sharing as
So,
well.
so cool everything you say, like resonates with me a lot. It's beautiful to see the practice of a friend, you know. Uh, see, yeah, to see practice, to see you yourself practicing. So so cool, so motivating, so it's inspiring. I mean, uh, wonderful. And yeah, yes, like the habit, you know, like the having on ourselves the calming end, you know, like oh, it's cool, never mind, it's okay. Don't go in the thought, it's okay, keep going, keep going. And sometimes there is the thought like we build a good state, like okay, this will go champion here now, and so on, so on, so on. But in the meantime, like there is maybe this retro thought that feels like okay, but I don't feel like that. I don't feel like this. I don't feel like this. And so there is comes again the oh, but calm, wake, calm, and and so you can play, you know, with building a great state, but also like knowing that it's fine anyway, you know, and also this double quality because you build also success and everything, but the important thing is to really nurture, you know, to really in the between uplifting thought and charging thought and you know the super wow thought that makes you feel like a champion. And at the same time, there is practice. So you're practicing that. So in the same time, it's important also to practice the okay. We said that the great thought is okay. I saw the mind going towards that direction. Now the thought is finished, and I won't fall into but I want to have again the thought. I will fall into like okay, but it's cool now. It's cool now. It's cool now. And then so you build also the momentum for another great thought. So you know the double quality of pushing with the great thoughts and opening, and also when I breathe, also you know I really like to feel the mind oxygenated and the expansion and the neck muscle the muscle of the neck expanding and so on. I really feel like this uplifting sensation of the mind that comes with breathing and also with thoughts. And maybe sometimes like I don't feel I have another deep breath, you know. I feel like okay, okay, enough of breathing, you know, like this. Okay, yeah, let me go into shallow breathing, and there comes, but by the way, there comes this thing that, but it's okay, it's okay, it's fine. It's fine. I don't go like into stopping practice and do something, but okay, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And so eventually you gain momentum again to go in for formal practice and
Mm.
to perform a good breathing and energizing and so on. So this double quality, you know, like there is the the run and then you catch your breath and then you run and you catch your breath at the same time pushing towards awesome and then say it's okay, it's fine, it's okay, it's fine. Oh, okay, let me push a bit. Okay, it's fine, it's okay, it's
Yeah, yeah.
fine.
Yeah, well, I know Dhammarato will bring up quite frequently that sort of swing analogy with this, right? So it's like, yeah, we spend some time like, pushing, the swing, and that's kind of like when we're getting perhaps started out, and then eventually we can just kind of do like light taps here and there. And that's kind of I think depend on like what is happening around us, like how much effort we wind up putting in, that changes too. And so sometimes it's like, yeah, we can really enjoy and have fun with the application. And then we can also just, yeah, let it chill down, be like, hey, it's all right. And, we don't need to put in much effort. And so developing the skill of that, of when to apply and then when just to drop is, also, yeah, another skill to work on and to cultivate and to enjoy, cultivating. That's really working in that nurture and working in, these skills as a habitual thing, and making a game out of it makes a huge difference. I have found, in terms of practice, and having that attitude of when the mind does wander into like the unwholesome, is to bake in that pity, to bake in that, hey, you know what, we caught that, never mind, start again, we're back here right now. And that's the thing where it's like, okay, glad to see you, as opposed to, oh boy, I'm so sad, I'm so sad. That's so simple, but that is like one of the main things, because we we're sitting and we're feeling good and all that stuff, but maybe the mind does wander away, and then it's getting right back to, wait, okay, we're back at this breath, and just taking it one breath at a time, as opposed to like, oh, I need to go and sit for 5, 10, 20 minutes, an hour, and if my concentration fades or what have you, I'm gonna have to beat myself up for the next 20 minutes about that. It's like, no, 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 it's just coming back to this breath, one breath at a time. This is enough. And really working in that satisfaction and working in that joyful success that we get. Again, that's so powerful, is like, again, with the nurture, with the congratulations, when you see the mind wander and you catch it, you go, okay, cool, we caught you. That can help to like just walk out of so many different strains that the mind likes to kind of go down, and just drop it and be like, okay, we can just, wow, we saw that, dropped it, congratulations. And to come back and to really bake in that feeling of that success, which is nice. And then again, that fades away, but that's cool too, you know.
It comes to me the analogy, like I will not do the analogy of the child because I'm not a father, so it can be really